how do I say this? Hey there and welcome back. In today's video, I wanted to share a few life updates with all of you. But first, let's finish this coffee. It's been quite a while since I've done like one of these sit down videos, so I'm like a little awkward, if you will. Okay, let me give you a little bit of a timeline. Last year, all of 2022, I was living in Barcelona. I did not film a lot of it because, like I said in my last video, I just didn't always feel like myself in Barcelona. 2022 was a rough year for me. It was like the accumulation of many things in my life, and it just happened that it was all coming full circle, if you will, realizations, whatever, in Barcelona. So I didn't always want to like pick up a camera and film. Got my master's. If you want to watch the docuseries, that final product, I'll have the link in the description below. And around September, I decided that I was coming back to New York. I didn't have the intention to come back to New York. That was never part of the game plan. Looking at the way I was feeling emotionally, mentally, and just certain things that I had to do, like logistically and whatnot, coming to New York was the best option. It took a couple of months to get like really comfortable with that decision because I really didn't want to, and I'm actually glad that I'm here. I think I needed to come back. I landed in New York right before the new year. I actually spent Christmas with my friend in Dublin. That's where she lives. Almost all of January, I just chilled. I was decompressing still from basically all of 2022. My friend had checked up on me one day. My response to like how I was feeling was I have the emotional and mental capacity to basically chill, sleep, and watch every version of Below Deck that I've missed since I've been away. And that's kind of what I did. Of course, I did other things. I just like didn't lay in bed all day. I thought a lot about my goals, if I still wanted to create YouTube, because it was a while since I've actually was creating consistently, like, and I had all these ideas, but I wasn't filming or bringing them to life. And like, why was that essentially? I also, if you don't know, started a podcast. I got 5 episodes out and I'm very proud of those 5 episodes, and I film a bunch more. I have, I think, 6 or 7 episodes that I filmed that I've decided will be published. But there was this feeling of, do I actually want to do that anymore? For the last, I would say maybe 7 or so years, my life, a good chunk of my 20s honestly, had been with like the priority and the focus of traveling, but specifically living abroad. So although I lived abroad in Chile for a certain period of time, and then Spain, and I like briefly went to Bali for like a volunteer thing, although those were the actual time I was abroad, there's a lot more that goes into that. Researching, preparing, getting certified for certain things, visa processes that take a long time, applying, waiting, packing. And so there's like an emotional and mental toll that comes with that before the actual moving, right? And I did that like technically 3 times. What I noticed is that it definitely took a toll on me. Anything that associated with that period of my life, I just didn't feel like I had the energy to do it towards the end of 2022 and the very beginning of 2023. I felt like I was evolving as a person. I have different priorities, which was a big thing that, you know, I was realizing in 2022. The idea behind it was I wanted to create a space where people could share their living abroad experiences. And as someone who has like certain abroad experiences, my experience isn't everyone's experience. So I had this idea of having these conversations with friends, conversations I was already having with friends, and just sharing them for people who were also doing and going through the same thing. And that's why it was called Navigating Life Abroad, because you don't finish navigating life when you move abroad. There might be some changes that I might do. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it just yet. However, I am going to, like I said, finish the other episodes that I've recorded. I'm going to edit and release those starting in March, so it will be back. Funny enough, in the process of going through this, of do I want to do this? Do I just like stop it, leave it as is, forget about it, move on with my life? Essentially, I am applying to jobs. And like jobs, I mean like, yes, like 9-to-5 jobs. It's crazy because I left a 9-to-5 job to like find these opportunities to be able to go live abroad and live a life abroad. I'm looking for a variation of things. I'm going to shoot my shot here on YouTube. So if anybody in this community has a connection, anything that's like marketing, communication, social media, like any creative type of job, ideally, of course, they would be a job that is like remote and location independent. However, I am really looking just to gain some experience. If anybody has a connection somewhere, that would be great. In the process of applying to these jobs, and this is like where it connects, which is, I know it's like weird, and some of these jobs require me to like send in work samples or a portfolio. And in the process of gathering this information and creating a little mini portfolio, I was like reacquainted with content that I had created in the past. I kind of abandoned a little bit my website, and opening it back up, I was like, oof, this baby needs some work. But also in that process, I was just, wow, I've created some stuff and I'm like, this isn't half bad. This video, you know, there's a point of view, there was a purpose, there was reason behind this. With some of the content, like it made me very proud. I was like, wow, like I have something to stand on, you know? These last couple of years, I've traveled and did things, but you know what? Like I was creating something with the hope that I was helping or inspiring someone else to go live abroad, or whether that was specifically Chile or a different place, that vulnerability sometimes, or that, you know, tips or whatever was doing something, and someone on the other end of this camera was getting something out of it. And so it reignited a little bit and made me fall in love again with YouTube specifically. Because YouTube was the original platform that I wanted to create on, because I had spent, you know, when I was in college and like my 20s, like watching YouTube videos and watching specifically travel or people living abroad and like those types of content creators, those vloggers, but also like how-to videos on like how to do certain things. Those were the videos that I really loved and I enjoyed watching. And what also inspired me to do that, when I was watching these videos of these vloggers and these travelers, no one really ever looked like me. The goal was because I didn't see people like myself in this space, and I wanted to create that because I know what that representation would have done for me. Big motivator and the original like intention and purpose that I had to create this YouTube channel. And so I kind of, in a way, like I didn't forget, but I kind of did. I did forget, honestly, that that was my original intention. And then at the same time, like I was having these like mini, you know, rediscoveries with my own things, there was like this trend on TikTok called like the Latina follow train, or the trend, I don't remember. But basically like all these like Latina content creators who like post videos about, you know, their life, whether it was fashion or food or wellness, like whatever it was, like they were, you know, sharing, and everybody was like following each other. This is why I started YouTube in the first place, like to share the thing that I love doing, right? In a space where there still isn't that many people that look like me. There are more now. In like this process, there was this one video that I did create about reverse culture shock. And that's something that I've always been really big on talking about, because I always feel like that's a part of the, whether it's you're studying abroad or just living abroad or teaching abroad, whatever it is, I feel like that's a process that often is not talked about. We kind of like live abroad and then like that's it. And so like this one video kind of inspired me, one, to film this life update. In my head, I was like, well, I'm not living abroad in Barcelona or in Chile or anywhere else. Do I have something to say? And I thought, well, my thing, like I mentioned, the podcast name and even the tagline of this YouTube channel is navigating life. And like I said, that navigating life doesn't stop when you move abroad, but it also doesn't stop when you return. Part of returning to your home city or wherever that may be is also part of that experience, because you go through so many emotions and you have to kind of like start over in a way and build your life back to a certain extent. And so what I've been also doing since I've been back, trying to create and solidify and build this routine that I really didn't have when I was living abroad, just because so many things were happening. Barcelona taught me to be present, and that's something that I'm really trying to carry, and I think it's a huge tip, honestly, when you are returning to wherever that is for you. And also doing things that like before I wouldn't. The traveler identity, I have a video about that as well where I go into much more detail, but I struggled for a long time, and 2022 is kind of when I really fully came to accept the fact that I'm human and I am allowed to evolve, and I'm allowed to change and have shifting priorities. For the longest time, my North Star was just to live abroad and to travel and to have these experiences. And that was the thing that I wanted more than anything. And I have been really lucky to have that and have that, that dream be completed. But I was also growing up and changing and wanting different things, even like small things. For a long time, like I had like no plants anywhere that I lived, because in my mind, I couldn't bring that with me, and that was something I would have to take care of, and then like I would have to either like leave behind or whatever, because if I moved or I wasn't staying here, like I couldn't take that with me. I'm a plant mom, not a dog mom or a cat mom yet, but I am a plant mom, and I'm very excited for that. And I know that seems so silly, but it was something that made me very excited, because it's something that I haven't like had in my life in a sense. So I am a plant mom of 3. I have a succulent named Petunia, a hanging one that is named Poppy, and then a little one that's named Bella. And I know that seems really silly. It's something that I find joy in, and for someone who really dedicated my life to just like living abroad and owning anything that just fit into 2 luggages and a small carry-on, it was really exciting for me to like have these 3 plants. That's like a really small anecdote to something that I'm trying to like say, in the sense that like in 2022 I had to really accept some of those shifts and not resist them so much, and acknowledge that I am changing and I want certain things. My identity doesn't have to be wrapped so much to one thing. I can make space for other things, and I acknowledge and accept, like I mentioned in my video, that in order to make changes you have to let some things go, and you have to be okay with that. And so that's kind of what the end of 2022 was. I'm trying to think if I have anything else I want to say. A lot of my identity was wrapped around this idea of living abroad. How do I say this? For most of my 20s, if not like a good chunk of it, like a good 7 years, a lot of my life has been researching, applying, visa, like everything that had to do with just like living abroad and then being able to travel and having those experiences, right? And this is the first year that I'm not living my life that way. It was a change, because that was always like a goal for me, right? The goal to like live here, to move here. Like, what do I have to do? So it's the first time that I don't have the goal of like, move to Chile, move to Barcelona, move to Bali. And I'm learning to be here. You know, the question always comes of like, what's next? And that's a question that a lot of people like to ask me. I personally started to hate that question. Of course, I'm human, and like I think of like, you know, what is next and what's not. For me, I've had the experience, the privilege to be able to travel, to live abroad. And I love living abroad. I really do. But I will say the last living abroad experience, you know, really took a toll on me. Living abroad isn't just experience, and it really, of living there, and it is beautiful and it's amazing and it's everything you hope it would be, but also it's very exhausting. There is an emotional and a mental toll that, you know, it takes on you. And I didn't do it one time, I did it like 3 times in like 5 years. That is exhausting. And so I don't have it in me to move abroad again, and that's why there isn't a goal of moving somewhere within like a year or so, which is like usually what I've been doing. I love living abroad. I think at this point in my life, I know that that's something that I value. Is there a place that I know that I want to live abroad a little bit more long term, not just like this like 1 year, half a year type of situation? Yes. In terms of content and like what's going to be happening on this channel, I have a lot of content that I wanted to share from Barcelona, some ideas about like life in Barcelona. I call them like sister videos to like the Chilean ones because they're very similar in the idea. And also the vloggy style videos of like my solo trip that I did, or some of the ones from Chile. I'm going to incorporate that here and my life in New York City, because that's where I'm currently at right now, and what that building my life kind of looks like. That's starting over, if you will. I'm going to also be 30 in a couple of months. And so there is this feeling and this kind of sense of I am starting over. I am like starting to write a new book of my life. I'm closing out my 20s and I'm starting to write the next book or the next chapter of my life, however you want to do that analogy, I don't know. And there is a bit of excitement in that because you bring the lessons and the wisdom, but this freedom and this confidence and comfortability that I didn't necessarily have back then. So that's the life update. A lot. It's like a brain dump almost, if you will. But that's kind of the things that have been on my mind lately. And if you want to join the ride of what the starting over, building back, whatever life looks like after returning from a time abroad, yeah, follow along and see, because I'm sure it's going to be up and down. I mean, there have already been a few ups and downs, but it's all part of the process. And I think it's a cool opportunity to also share that part of the process. I shared a lot of what that process was like when I was living in Chile, and now I get to share what that life and that process is like when you return from a time abroad. The posting schedule, I'll briefly talk about that because like I said, one of my things in terms of habits was consistency. That's something that I'm really trying to work on this year, like really trying to, because I know I haven't been the best about it, especially when I'm not in the best like mental state. It doesn't happen at all. And so I want to post 2 videos a month, ideally working up to, you know, once a week, but I'm gonna start with 2 and just getting into the habit of creating 2 and publishing beautifully imperfect videos, because I am a perfectionist and I will find 1,000 flaws in one video, but learning to let it go. I still struggle with that, like 30 videos in. And so yeah, posting content about navigating life and life abroad. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.